Today, our special guest is Lisa McDonald, who is the editor of Hillborn Charity e-News. And she is here to talk to us about professional development opportunities in fundraising or nonprofit marketing or anything to do with the charitable sector. Now, I'm going to leave her contact information below, as well as a resource list that her and I developed based on our conversations. And I'm going to do timestamps too, because we do cover a bit. So if you are looking to learn how to fundraise, how to increase your skills as a fundraiser, or learn new skills as a fundraiser, let's welcome Lisa. Welcome, Lisa. I thought you were absolutely perfect to do this video because you've worked in the nonprofit sector for years. You are trained as a journalist and you are currently the editor of Hillborn Charity e-News. So you're probably the perfect one to speak to us about professional development for fundraisers and some of the resources out there, like the books and the podcasts that we can go to educate ourselves.
Thanks, Joanne. No, this is a subject that's close to my heart, and professional development is kind of one aspect of the conversation we have at Hillborn all of the time. But what's interesting, it is kind of the overarching kind of objective that we have in terms of providing information, communication, sharing of best practices. It's all part of that process of professional skill development and sharing and learning from others on how to make our whole profession stronger and better.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit off camera about why this is so important and the capacity for charities and the sector, what we've been trying to do in the sector to legitimize the profession.
Yeah, we've all come through a hard time. I mean, we know our history with COVID, but before that, we've had economic downturns, we've had all kinds of things happening, not just in our own countries, but throughout the world. And all of it has an impact on the charitable sector, like it does. We have to remember that in Canada, nonprofits make up over 8% of our gross domestic product. So that is significant. We have over 2 million workers in Canada, and we have over 170,000 charities. So we are a big part of the fabric of our communities, of our countries, our cities. And so the impact of what's happening in all of those arenas impact our work on a daily basis. Okay, but then what does that mean for our frontline workers? It means that, it's increasingly challenging to prioritize time for ourselves to learn and build our skill sets, especially in a nonprofit environment where there's often a scarcity mindset of there not being enough resources, enough time, enough money, to just achieve our mandates, let alone invest in ourselves. So I think workers find themselves looking for things to help increase their skill set, to make them better able to cope and perform in the environments that we have. And that kind of drills all the way down to what we're talking about today in terms of what are some of those resources that are available to people, how do they access them, what kind of costs are involved. Like it's all of that.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of our viewers are in the US and the UK as well. And the same principles we're going to talk about today apply for them. And as well, a lot are they're young fundraisers, or they're just starting their own charity and they have no idea where to begin in terms of learning fundraising and nonprofit marketing and all of these skill sets that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the one thing that technology has done certainly has turned us into it's a global conversation that we're having all of the time. And the experience of fundraisers in the UK really align often with what's happening, or in Europe, sorry, I shouldn't say just the UK, but in all of Europe is very much aligned with what's happening in Canada, the US, Australia. And the fact that our technology allows in real-time conversations between people about what's going on is such an opportunity for sharing and growing together. So absolutely, this is not just a Canadian kind of phenomenon, but this is for everyone everywhere. And then, yes, this is also, it's well recognized, particularly in Canada, I'll say this, that there is high turnover within our sector. We do have young people coming in all of the time. And how are we creating a learning environment for those individuals so they can grow and take what has been started to the next level of achievement and help to grow despite all of these challenges that are out there. It's a big question, and it's a conversation that's going on not just here today between you and I, but it's a conversation that's happening in a lot of different places.
Yeah, there is no real university courses that you can take in. I mean, I'm here in Calgary at U of C, and my daughter wants to follow me into the industry. So really, she's got a communications degree, but now she has to go and learn the fundraising. And there isn't really a lot for her other than some of the courses, some of the webinars, some of the online training, some of the books. But that's where I was hoping you could tell us some of your best tips for where would she go to learn how to become a fundraiser or a better fundraiser?
Right. Well, I think let's start with books, because I think that was where you kind of hit upon this topic as a conversation. And I mean, books are always a fabulous place to start. They're accessible to anyone and everyone in all different formats. What I noticed when I was kind of preparing for our conversation today, that when you do the Google searches for top nonprofit books, for example, I find that how the Google universe defines nonprofit and what they include in those lists wouldn't necessarily be how I would curate the list and include the information. But that can be a different conversation. But what it's important to recognize is that I would say, generally speaking, book resources could be placed into kind of two buckets of information. One is about philanthropy. So the role that philanthropy plays in our communities, in our society, and certainly the advent of the huge kind of wealthy philanthropists in the US, the impact that they're making on directing certain projects and funding have been very much topical in the news. And therefore that idea of philanthropy also is permeating books in a big way. And then you have, I would say, the books that are more the tone and timbre of what we're talking about, which is professional development. And sometimes these books are very tactical, very specific, and sometimes they're more general discussion on leadership. But they all offer in various kind of lengths and descriptions and methodologies some really, really good ways to increase your skill set. There are a lot of books out there that you will want to keep close to your desk to have on your on your shelf that you can pull down and refer to on a moment's notice. We also have things like newsletters. I would say Hillborn Charity e-News comes under that kind of thing. So these are electronic publications that come out on a regular published basis. E-News is published once a week, and it's subscription based, but it's free. So often with these types of publications, people just have to go and opt in to receiving it, and then it's sent right into their inbox. So it's probably the least amount of work because you are getting curated information delivered to you at your desk. And it's just a matter of taking the time to kind of go through and understand the topics and kind of who the authors are. For Hillborn, for example, we're really looking for contributors who have what I call lived experience. So they're very much talking about their own practical learnings on the job and sharing that with others. So think of, what you might get by attending a conference in terms of takeaways for a given topic. And that's what you get in a typical, e-news article. You're going to get tangible takeaways, clear key messages, and things that you can, activate and do right away. Everything from fundraising to executive director type information to I've just started out working in the sector. Help, how do I set up how do I prepare to take vacation? How do I let my donors know that I'm not going to be there when they might need to call? Things like that. So it can be very practical. So there's a lot of, it's Hillborn Charity e-News isn't the only person out there doing this kind of thing, but we do it on a weekly basis. You have other organizations like Charity Village, like the Philanthropist, who also are putting similar content out, but not necessarily from the same perspective. So it's really good to take some time and visit websites and read articles and figure out what seems to fit. And that's a great way to go too. Quick reads, not a lot of investment in time as well. There's a lot of associations out there who publish information, not just for members, but for general public who are interested in understanding what's going on. Anyone who's been in fundraising will, I'm sure, have heard of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, AFP, that have chapters throughout Canada and the US. They regularly publish information. They did actually used to have a book publishing arm as well, which they no longer do, but they publish information about kind of new and noteworthy kind of happenings in the sector. They certainly do a lot of development work for people who are members, but you can still even access a certain amount of information just, as a casual drop-in basis, if that's all.
They do their fundamentals in fundraising course, which is fantastic. I've been a teacher for that course, and it is excellent. That's the first place I would send my daughter, as well as all of the newsletters and the books. For my CFRE, I had to read a lot of books. I have a lot of them on my shelf over there, but yeah.
Yeah, CFRE is another great one to mention. And when we talk about the effort to professionalize the sector, the CFRE designation is one way that has allowed longtime professionals to kind of apply their craft and to show that they've built up a certain level of knowledge and expertise that really is deserving of accreditation and allow them to become teachers of others and empowering others and passing it along. So the CFRE is another example that originated with the Association of Fundraising Professionals, but has really become its own thing that I'm sure people will come across as they start to read the materials and they see kind of what's out there. It's kind of an end goal. It's a place you can work towards on that continuum of education.
It's your professional designation. You're a certified fundraising executive, and it really does add credibility. And you have to learn. There's a test. You have to learn the basics of fundraising in order to pass that test.
Yeah. So it's no small effort. I know from anyone who's done it. It's a big commitment and a big work effort, and there's a lot of learning involved in that. And then you have also organizations like the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, for anyone who's working in that area, and more. So these associations on their websites, they often do some form of a newsletter. They do some form of regular posting. That's another great source of information just to educate yourself, even if it's not about specifics to your day-to-day tasks, but about what's happening in the sector in general and what the issues are and what's coming down the pipe. To complement that, you have organizations like Imagine Canada and Canada Helps and some of these other kind of advocacy groups for the nonprofit sector who are trying to tackle issues for workers on perhaps more of a national level, provincial level, however it is. And they often also have a certain amount of editorial content, opinion on what's going on. And again, information is power. So the more you understand kind of how your nonprofit is navigating within this landscape, it can really make a difference in an individual wanting to, push themselves along that continuum of learning and become more of a leader. Podcasts, we're here doing a YouTube channel interview. more and more people are getting into not just video, but podcasts as well. I don't know. Do you do a podcast?
I do a podcast as well. And that's because, I mean, you've read some of my writing. You did one of
Yeah.
my articles, and I have
Mhm.
dyslexia. So for
Oh,
me, it's much easier to speak it than it is to write it. And I know for myself, I rather listen than read.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like that. So, I mean, in terms of resources, I think it's a great idea to really think about how you learn and what you enjoy and what your time allows. And so, if reading isn't your thing, then perhaps popping in a podcast and listening to it in the car is the way to go. Um, again, like anything else, you have to find what works for you, what's relevant to what you're trying to learn and where you're at. But I think podcasts are continuing to grow. Like I know two people who've just launched podcasts for the nonprofit sector in the last 2 months. So just since the start of summer. And that's really interesting to me. Like that's really interesting in terms of meeting the needs of people who are wanting to learn more and have discussions and connect in a different way. So, although I am partial to the written word and that's the way that I communicate and enjoy to consume information, I really, I'm fully aware that that's not for everyone. So, it's a deep dive, into the podcast world too, when you start to look for information and resources, and kind of fun, I think, as another way to do it. And then the final thing that I would mention, just in terms of tapping into resources and learning opportunities, certainly is just with subject matter experts who are out there. And I think, Joanne, like you're a fantastic example of this, because there are a lot of people like yourself who've worked in the sector for a long time, 20 plus years. They have a lot of expertise to share. Certainly there's opportunities to teach at workshops, but a lot of people such as yourself are starting these channels as a way to educate and share information. So this isn't my first interview I've asked to do, and I really enjoy having these conversations. So I think people can look for people like yourself who are experts in their own fields. So they have something to say about whatever their particular area of work that they've been in, but then they bring in other people too to kind of share their perspectives and their experiences. And I'm sure on this journey that you've been on, you must get a lot of feedback from people who appreciate kind of the teaching that you're doing and sharing that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I haven't been doing many webinars, which is a request that I've been getting, because I know there's a lot of great nonprofit webinars out there, but it's social media. That's where I tend to get a lot of the thank yous is there. And there's a lot more creators or a lot more fundraisers that are creating content to educate on social media. I follow a lot of them. And again, we're going to list all of these different segments and some examples in the description, because there are some really great fundraisers and nonprofit marketers out there that are just giving this stuff away for free because we care. I mean, I know for me, I can't volunteer for every organization that pulls at my heart. I don't have the time. So maybe I can help to work to empower them to do it for themselves.
Well, exactly. And it's people like yourself that, often I come into contact with through Hillborn Charity e-News, who volunteer to write for our publication, who are sharing, that's how we get such a diverse kind of number of contributors on such a variety of topics, because there's so many people like you out there willing to share what they've learned and really want to do it to help the sector as a whole. So that is something that can't be undervalued. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to tap into those kind of resources and to learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that really surprised me when I got into the sector was the mentorship. The amount of people that were willing to take you under their wing and show you what you needed to know. I mean, my very first mentor was a gentleman, Scott Dexmer. I'm not sure if you know
I
him.
know Scott. Yes,
He
I
was my
do.
very first mentor when I started fundraising 25 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And this whole idea of mentorship is another piece of this puzzle or this discussion around professional skill development, because if we don't have mentors kind of helping to show the way, whether they do that through written books, through workshops, through one-on-one programs and associations, through podcasts and videos, or whether it's in office, face-to-face kind of mentoring where a leader takes a junior staff under the wing. If these things aren't happening, then we are not doing our job to cultivate success within the nonprofit sector. We are not doing what is necessary to build in successful succession planning. I'll say that 3 times fast. We are not doing what we need to do for our donors in terms of valuing their contributions to make sure there's sustainable foundations to bring them through to fruition. Like, there's just so many aspects, and they're all pieces of the puzzle that need to be kind of considered and put together. So yeah, mentorship is another topic that I think is really important. And I hope that viewers will kind of think about, how they can mentor, or whether they're more of a person who needs to be a mentee and find someone to help, get them on the right path for them and for the organization. Read the books, survey the articles, listen to your podcasts, and then reach out and have conversations with people who you may or may not know ahead of time. But there is something for everyone out there. There at whatever your learning level is, whatever your skill ability is, whether you're the newest of news, or you've been around the block a few times and you feel like, how do I refresh my passion for this sector? How do I stop looking at things with cynical eyes? Like, where do I go from here? There are mentors, there are resources that can really help you take that next step and re-engage with what you're doing, in a loving way that philanthropy should be about, right? On a daily basis. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Actually, what inspired me to start this channel was I was working for a client that wanted me to do major or planned giving. And planned giving, I know it. I was trained in it, but I didn't necessarily have the real life experience. So I went searching for information on YouTube, and I couldn't find anything. So that's what led to this. Is I could find lots of books, and I couldn't find webinars either. But yeah, it's more and more people are starting to put this information out, so that eventually, when we do Google, we'll find whatever we're looking for.
Absolutely. And there's still a lot of work to be done. And it's funny you mentioned planned giving, because that is actually a secret little passion for me. Like, I love planned giving. I edited gift planning in Canada for many years. Yeah, did you? I edited that for many years, and I love the people involved. I love the material. I found it always really, really interesting, a very interesting part of fundraising that in most cases gets done off the side of people's desks, and yet it's such a potential for growth. So yes, I'm all about gift planning. I'm trying to figure out ways to incorporate more of that into e-news, and interestingly enough, there may be an opportunity for me to participate in a book, a new book that's being put out, because there isn't a lot of current that has been done on gift planning as well. So I'll keep you in the loop on that one. But yeah, there's still gaps. There's a lot of gaps out there, and there's work to be done. But there's enough to get people going. Like, I can't believe that if on any given topic, someone can't find information that would be helpful, or connect with someone who could help to mentor them or provide information. And if somebody finds a topic out there that they can't find information on, I invite them to contact me directly, and I will hook you up, because you get to know a lot of people when you've been doing this for a while, and I think it's all out there. So,
well, anything that you wanted to say in closing?
I know it's been kind of a free-ranging discussion, and I appreciate the opportunity just to kind of put this out there, and the need for more communication around professional development and resources. So thank you for that. I'm excited to kind of build that list with you for people to kind of look through. I will say charityinfo.ca for Hillborn e-News is going to be a quick shortcut for anybody who is looking for so many topics in one place. I'll continue to plug Hillborn Charity e-News, but we also have a book imprint called Civil Sector Press, where there are a lot of great books, Canadian, European authors, US-based authors. They're kind of all there. We are at Civil Sector Press, we're publishing 2 to 3 books a year. And so there's a lot of current content coming out that's there, and I would encourage people to check it out. Again, it's another shortcut instead of starting with Google and going through the list and figuring out what's what. But yeah, just prioritize your own learning, prioritize finding information. It's time well spent, I believe.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate your time, and I know how important it is, this professional development. It's been a huge part of my career, and I know a huge part of your career, and any fundraiser that I know that still has that passion for it is because they continue to keep themselves educated and on fire.
Well, I think the one thing that this sector offers is the ability to continue to reinvent yourself. So there's no excuse for staying stagnant or feeling stagnant. I think there's all kinds of opportunity to learn, grow, and change and increase, skill sets and new areas of learning. And you just kind of have to reach out and go after it and be willing, to put yourself out of your comfort zone at times and say, oh, that's interesting to me. I think I could learn something about that, or that would be good to bring back to my team and see what people think, whether it gets a new conversation going. It's I think that's what it's about, and I just think there's a ton of potential in that we can use to be better, and get smarter in the way that we work. So that's kind of what I hope.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.